The year is 2008. The Nintendo Wii is continuing to make headlines for its casual sense of play, and Nintendo has just released their magnum opus, Mario Kart Wii, a casual kart racer that took the world by storm and to this day is the second best-selling entry in the series and for the console. After the booming success of this hit title, however, people started to take notice, which led to an era I refer to as the Kart Racer Kraze. From Hot Wheels and NASCAR to SpongeBob and Madagascar, anyone and everyone was getting involved with the Mascot Kart Racing franchise to try and profit off of Mario Kart's success. While all of this was happening, however, lurking in the shadows was one of Nintendo's old foes, a once thriving video game empire known as SEGA! And in 2010, they submitted their entry into the Kart Racer Kraze by taking their mainline character Sonic the Hedgehog and several other properties that they owned and releasing Sonic and
SEGA All-Stars Racing!
Okay, I see how it is. You want the rest of the script as well, you interrupting
In this episode of Cartridges and Consoles, we'll take a look at Sega's entry into the Kart Racer Kraze and show how it could have been a worthy contender against Mario Kart, but how it is severely hindered by some issues around its general theme. Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing released in February of 2010 for the Nintendo Wii, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Nintendo DS, with releases on PC and mobile coming after the fact. While it's easy to say the game was made to profit off of the success of Mario Kart, in reality the game's developers, Sumo Digital, wanted to make a racing game after the release of this game's technical prequel, Sega Superstars Tennis. By using their knowledge from making such hits as Outrun 2006, Race Driver 2006, and F1 2009, they made this game. As for the gameplay, it's what I consider to be your basic kart racing game, meaning you and 7 other competitors, 5 in the DS version, race a set amount of laps around a racetrack, using items you pick up around the course to try and reach the finish line first. There are several main modes that this game has, with the main draws being split-screen races or single race mode, where you and up to 3 friends can compete in a race on any of the game's 24 tracks, Grand Prix mode, where you compete for points in 6 cups of 4 races, and the dedicated single-player mission mode, where you must tackle 64 individual challenges to try and get the best rank possible. In addition, you have a Sega license that keeps track of all your progress through the game, and there's an in-game shop where you can buy additional characters, racetracks, and music. Now, I think the place that this game heavily benefits in is in the general racing style. The controls feel very fluid for this type of game in the early 2010s, almost feeling like they don't belong in a kart racing game. The driving feels tighter, drifting around corners takes some getting used to, and even the boost start that Mario Kart players are so used to is not as easy here, as the timing to pull it off varies from character to character. The best way I can describe it is that the driving feels more akin to the Burnout games than it does to the other kart racers released during this time, which makes this game stand out and gives it a sense of uniqueness amongst the crowd. On top of this, the item selection is also pretty good. While some of the items are near carbon copies of ones from Mario Kart or other kart racers, there are some items that are unique in this game. There's the energy shield that protects the driver from a single attack, the confusing star which flips the screen of the opponent in front of you upside down, the pocket rainbow which obstructs racers with pride if they drive through it, and the giant rocket which you can activate to blow up at any time. However, the most unique item in the game goes to the signature All-Star move. A powerful move that differs between every character that is meant to be the ticket back into contention. From turning into Supersonic and blasting through opponents as Sonic, making everyone dance around you as Amigo or Ulala, or becoming forklift certified and flipping your opponents as Rio. All of these moves work in different ways with the intention of getting you from the back to the front as fast as possible. Speaking of characters, the game also has 21 playable SEGA characters, all of which represent a vast array of different franchises. While yes, the Sonic franchise takes up most of these slots with 8 characters, which makes sense considering his name is the first word in the game's title, there are a total of 13 other SEGA characters you can play as, including Ai from Super Monkey Ball, Beat from Jet Set Radio, BD Joe from Crazy Taxi, and my personal favorite, Oppa Oppa from Fantasy Zone. There's even version-exclusive characters if you own the Nintendo Wii or Xbox 360 versions of the game, with Wii players getting their Mii and Xbox 360 players getting their Avatar and Banjo and Kazooie. Yes, that Banjo and Kazooie from the series by Rareware. Oh, to be a fly on the wall when Microsoft was talking to SEGA about that. There's even some fun Easter eggs within the game, such as the achievements all being names of or references to other SEGA titles, extra characters like Knights and Rystar being seen, and many more things that help add to the experience and make it a fun time for die-hard SEGA fans. Another big positive with this game is the fact it has the single-player mission mode. While yes, the missions are pretty simple, ranging from partaking in a few races, to doing a knockout race where after a certain amount of time, last place is eliminated, to extra challenges such as drifting or boosting as long as you can, or hitting as many enemies as possible, they still provide an extra flair to the single-player aspect of the game that most kart racers lack. However, the biggest issues I have with the game can almost all be traced back to the same problem of franchise representation. Or more so, the lack thereof. This problem can mainly be split into 3 parts: characters, tracks, and music. While yes, I mentioned that there are 15 total SEGA franchises represented in the game's character selection, the character choices they made definitely feel a bit off. I mean, come on. Billy Hatcher from Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, the Choo-Choos from Choo-Choo Rocket, an obscure Dreamcast game, Zobio and Zobiko from House of the Dead, but only one specific arcade game released only in Japan? These choices definitely could have been better, especially considering Sega's large catalog of games and franchises. Like, seriously, raise your hand if you knew who Mobo and Robo were before playing this game. Congrats, you're a nerd. The second part of this problem boils down to the track selection in the game. As I mentioned, there are a total of 24 tracks, all of which are split between 8 different themes. 3 of those themes are Sonic the Hedgehog, while the other 5 themes are split between different games, including Super Monkey Ball, Samba de Amigo, Jet Set Radio Future, House of the Dead, and Billy Hatcher. Look, I get the franchise you chose to be included here didn't help in trying to decide on locations, but the fact that a GameCube game nobody really remembers got this much of a spotlight is a little concerning. The final part of this problem I find is with the music, as the only music available outside of the All-Star themes are linked to the game's track selection, meaning you once again have several SEGA franchises that do not have any representation outside of their character being playable. This franchise representation problem is by and large the biggest flaw about the game, and really puts a damper on not just the experience for die-hard SEGA fans, but also on the game's name, which suggests that SEGA All-Stars are involved. Speaking of the music, there is another problem I find with it that bears mentioning. There really isn't any original music. Almost all of the music from Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing, minus the main menu themes, is ripped straight from other SEGA games. This isn't the worst thing in the world, as there are some music tracks that work well in a racing game like this, but it still comes off as a bit lazy when you think about it. For comparison, look at a game like, say, Super Smash Bros., a crossover between multiple different Nintendo franchises that includes not only the original music from those games, but also remix versions of iconic themes. While there was an effort to have original music in a game like Smash Bros., SEGA didn't bother to actually make remix themes, and instead just copy and pasted the music from their other games. I'd argue the best version of this game in terms of music is, surprisingly, the DS version, where they couldn't copy and paste the music due to technical limitations and instead had to get Alistair Brimble to make a MIDI remix version of the soundtrack. Again, while this isn't a massive issue, I do wish some thought was put into making original compositions for this game that aren't... instead of just taking pre-existing themes and slapping them in. Overall, Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing is at the core a very solid kart racer, but its lack of franchise representation is what really drags down the experience. The very tight and somewhat challenging driving style, the interesting and unique items, and the several fun and entertaining modes make this game stand out from other kart racers of the era and give it some time in the limelight. However, a character roster filled with weird oddities, a track selection that leaves a bit to be desired, and the lack of an original soundtrack really hurt the game, especially when it advertises in the title that it includes SEGA All-Stars. That being said, if you're a fan of kart racers or a die-hard SEGA fan, this is a game you can enjoy. However, the issues that it does have keep it from contending with Nintendo and their king of kart racers from this era. Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing gets my rating of 7 cartridges out of 10.